The Fort Erie Podcast with Brent Jones. Brent Jones starts now.
Hey, that's me, Brent Jones. Welcome to the Fort Erie Podcast. Look, we live in a time of great division. Relaunching this podcast today after a 14-month hiatus, I thought I would start us off with a unifying topic, and that topic is pizza. I'm a bit of an expert on pizza, if you can't tell by looking at my dad bod. But look, people love to fight over all sorts of trivial stuff when it comes to pizza. What toppings they like. Does pineapple belong on a pizza? Should stuffed crust be entered into the conversation, or is that just an abomination to pizzas everywhere? But I'm really interested for today's purposes in only one thing, and that is how many times per month does your household order pizza? I posed this question on social media last week. A couple of people DM'd me and said, once a month, typically, maybe twice a month. One lady actually messaged me and said she was declining to answer my question out of embarrassment, which I took to mean that she enjoys a lot of pizza. My family, we probably order pizza once a month. That would be my guess, about once a month. And the reason I'm asking this is because, and I'm sure everyone listening has noticed, the town of Fort Erie has dozens of pizza joints, dozens, and they all seem to be doing well. They're all busy, it seems. I'm not going to name them all, but there are dozens. You can look it up. I'm sure you could name 20 right off the top of your head. But even just looking at Ridgeway alone, let's say just in Ridgeway, there were 6 places that either do pizza takeout and delivery or sit-down restaurants that have pizza options. I might be missing some, but I'm counting 6, and those are Bella Pizza, Papa's Pizza, Domino's, the Pizza at the new Esso station on Gorham, 335 on the Ridge, and Rizzo's House of Parm. You could even get a pizza sub at Subway, I guess, but I don't think that counts. And Rizzo's, to be technical, is in Crystal Beach, but it's right on the border. You could stand in the Rizzo's parking lot, throw a rock, and hit Ridgeway. So I'm going to count it. I'm going to say it's Ridgeway. That's 6 places. You can either get pizza delivered, or you can get takeout. Based on the last real estate mail out that I did, there are approximately 3,500 homes in Ridgeway. If every one of those homes orders a pizza, let's say twice a month, that is, I did the math, I checked it twice, that is 84,000 pizza orders per year, just in Ridgeway. Maybe more than 84,000 pizzas, since a lot of times I imagine if you are ordering pizza, maybe you're ordering 2 or 3, not to mention wings, dipping sauce, garlic bread, other things on the side. But that 84,000 pizza orders, that works out to 38 pizzas delivered or taken out per Ridgeway pizza place per day. 38. Does that sound like a lot? I don't know. I'm not in the pizza business, so I don't know. Does selling 38 pizza orders a day make these places a lot of dough, pun intended? I don't know. I've got no idea. I've never been in the restaurant business, let alone the pizza business. But is my math wrong? Do people order pizza maybe a little bit less, a little bit more? How many times a month does your household order pizza? So as I mentioned earlier, I put that question on social media last week. I asked listeners of the show to call in their answer for a brand new segment I'm calling the Byrd Box, and that's going to be coming up later. What's the Byrd Box, you ask? Well, it's Fort Erie's new answering machine. That's what I'm calling it. You're going to love this. Anything on your mind, any topic, question, comment, concern, you can call the Byrd Box 24 hours a day and squawk about whatever you'd like, okay? I'm calling it the Byrd Box because the last 4 digits spell BYRD. It's the only thing I could spell with the last 4 digits, BYRD. So I thought, hey, let's lean into it. I'm going to call it the Byrd Box. The number is 289-599-2973 or 289-599-BYRD, B-Y-R-D. You can call that number anytime, 24 hours a day. You can leave a message you want the whole town to hear. And frankly, when I announced that number, this voicemail box, the Byrd Box on social media last week, frankly, I expected I'd get some hate messages, from those of you who dislike realtors for whatever reason. But actually, everyone who's left a message so far was respectful, which is nice. Anyway, a few of you did take the time to call in and tell me a bit about your pizza eating habits, and we're going to get to those messages shortly.
News on the Fort Erie Podcast.
Well, one of my favorite things about being in Fort Erie is that there is just always something to do and something to talk about, especially in one of our many Fort Erie Facebook groups. And there's a whole bunch of them. You might remember back on May the 4th, at the start of the month, there was a black Mustang ripping around town, endangering public safety. There were numerous complaints to the police about, I don't know whether it's called stunt driving or dangerous driving, but generally being a nuisance. And police at that time decided not to engage with that driver. It was a male driver and a female passenger, decided not to engage with those people because they didn't want to put the public at any further risk. We see in TV and movies all the time that police love to engage in high-speed chases. And of course, in the real world, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't happen very often. But a bit of good news, May the 9th, just this past week, the couple were apprehended in Durham region. There was a male driver, 38 years old. He's been charged with dangerous driving, flight from police, and obstruction. And his female passenger, she's 29, says she's of no fixed address, which I take to mean she is homeless. But she's been charged with break and enter, theft of motor vehicle, possession of stolen property, and 3 counts of failing to comply with a release order. Just sounds like a pair of quality human beings just taken in the sights in Fort Erie, doesn't it? Anyway, hopefully these two don't come back anytime soon. The other story I wanted to mention is MPP Wayne Gates, our local member of provincial parliament. He has filed a complaint sort of on behalf or in defense of the Fort Erie Race Track, filed a complaint against Woodbine Racetrack with the Canadian Trade Commission under the Federal Competition Act. There's allegations that horse shipping policies are preventing sort of free movement of horses between Woodbine and Fort Erie, and there are issues around the scheduling of the Triple Crown races. I'm going to be honest in saying I don't know a whole heck of a lot about horse racing, about horse race tracks. All I know for sure is that I really like going out to race night at the Fort Erie Race Track, on Tuesday nights in the summer. Great chance to check out the live music and have a couple wobbly pops and bump into people you know. It's a lot of fun. So what I'm going to try to do later in this episode, I'd like to try to get somebody from the Fort Erie Race Track to have a quick chat with me, quick chat with us, and explain sort of what the basis is for this complaint and how this actually impacts racing in Fort Erie in sort of a more practical, everyday sense.
It's Fort Erie's answering machine, the Byrd Box.
This is the Byrd Box. Welcome. This is a new feature on the Fort Erie podcast. It's a voicemail inbox that I have created for you, dear listeners, to call in and share what's on your mind. It could be good. It could be bad. It could be a question, a comment, a concern. It could be anything. It's really totally up to you, but you can leave a message you want the whole town to hear. And by the way, why did I call it the Byrd Box? Well, the last 4 digits spell BYRD. That's the only thing I could spell with the last 4 numbers. So I thought, let's call it the Byrd Box. You can call in, squawk about whatever you want. 289-599-BYRD. Make sure to leave messages that I can play in each new episode of the Fort Erie podcast. Now, I mentioned earlier, I was talking about pizza at the start of this episode, and I did kind of put out on social media last week asking people about how often they eat pizza, where do they get their pizza in town, leave a message on the Byrd Box. And we had a couple of folks do that, so I'm going to play those messages now. Let's jump into the first one here and go.
Hey, welcome to Byrd Box. Got nothing to squawk about, but I think you asked about how often I order pizza. Really none of your business, but if I'm on the go, my place to go is Pizza Hut with their boneless wings. And if anybody wanted to know how...
Hang on. I'm going to skip back. I'm just going to interrupt a little bit. Okay, so it's none of my business. I appreciate that, of course, sir, but you did call in and tell me the answer. So I guess you kind of made it my business. But the second thing I want to mention is that a boneless wing is not a wing. A boneless wing is a nugget. I think that's an important distinction. Anyway, let me skip back a few seconds and press play.
If I'm on the go, my place to go is Pizza Hut with their boneless wings. And if anybody wanted to know how many pizza places are in town, in this little town, Barrel, Central, Domino's, Little Caesars, Pizza Hut, Pizza, Zia's, Bella's, Mabel's, Papa's, Shaggy's. And then, of course, we got the restaurants that may serve pizza. Casa Hugo's, San Vito's, Sneakers, Left of Central, Bistro, The Place, Vaticano's, Rizzo's, Trailsides, and more. Take it easy. Let me know what you think.
Well, what I think, sir, is that's a very exhaustive list, and I appreciate the call because you're just illustrating my point. I mean, if you missed the earlier part of the episode, I did the math and basically said for the 6 places that sell pizza in Ridgeway, they're selling an average of 38 pizzas per day, or 38 pizza orders, which may include multiple pizzas. And this is illustrating my point that there are dozens, I mean, literally dozens of pizza places in Fort Erie, and they all seem to be busy. So either we're ordering a ton more pizza than I actually think that we're ordering, which is entirely possible. Or I don't know, do we have too many pizza places? It seems like pizza remains popular. I'm not totally sure. But anyway, we got a strong opinion here in the second message. Let me play it now.
It doesn't matter how many times a week you order out, as long as you're only ordering pizza from Central Pizza. I will go to my grave saying that it is the best pizza in the Niagara region, hands down. Thank you, Massey family, for being around and supporting Fort Erie forever.
Okay, so best pizza in Niagara region, in the entire region? No. Hey, Massey family, lovely people. Central Pizza, great business. The pizza, yeah, it's okay. It's not my favorite. It's good. It's good pizza. I'm not going to say anything bad about Central Pizza. Not my favorite pizza. I'd be much more inclined if I were ordering pizza to order or get takeout from either the Barrel or from Bella Pizza in Ridgeway. I tend to like that sort of style of pizza a little bit better, if I'm being quite honest. Not slamming Central Pizza, great pizza, but go to your grave saying it's the best pizza place, not just in Fort Erie, but in all of Niagara. I don't know. I think that's a bit extreme. Anyway, what I'd like you to do, dear listener, call the Byrd Box. Let me know, what is your favorite place to get pizza? What is the best pizza in town? Do you agree with our second caller that Central Pizza is the be-all, end-all? Or have you tried another pizza place that maybe you like a little bit better? Let me know what your favorite is. Call 289-599-BYRD, B-Y-R-D.
Have something you want to squawk about? Let the whole town know what's on your mind. Call the Byrd Box at 289-599-2973. That's 289-599-BYRD.
Well, joining me on the phone right now is James Culic, who you're probably used to me introducing with Niagara this week, but instead I'm going to say he's the marketing and corporate communications manager at the Fort Erie Race Track. Did I get that title right?
You did, yeah. That's my swanky new title. I used to just one of those guys with just a one-word title, right? Just reporter. And I always liked that I just had one word as my job title, and now it's one of those multi-one things with an ampersand in the middle. It's all complicated, but such is life.
Well, I'm just very proud of myself that I got it right. I think, I was
first try, no less. Yeah.
First try. Well, you know what? This is not the first time I've talked to the marketing and corporate communications manager at the Fort Erie Race Track. It's the first time you've been in the role. So how did that happen? Like, why aren't you with the newspaper anymore? Or you kind of still are, I guess.
Yeah, I sort of still am with the newspaper. I wear a couple hats. It's a little bit awkward now. There's certain things I can't write about anymore for work, right, due to some conflicts. But, my wife used to work at the racetrack, and I always said for years, I've been saying, when you leave this job, I'm going to apply for your job when you leave. And then one day she actually did leave. She got a job over at Niagara Health. And true to my word, I really did apply to her job. So I got her old job, and now I'm at the racetrack.
It's kind of a crazy story. And I assume some people in Fort Erie know that and some don't. And for people who listen to the Fort Erie podcast, they'd be familiar that I had your wife on the show, back a ways when she was in that role at the racetrack, and then had you on as, reporter with Niagara This Week, reporter and commentary, I guess we could call it. And now, does that create any tension at home? Like now that, it's like she did the job before, like, does she kind of judge you? Like, are you kind of cutting the mustard or not?
Oh, absolutely. And it makes it worse that we both work from home at one big long desk, so she can see what I'm doing all day. And I feel like sometimes she glances over to see what I'm doing. She's like, I would do it this way. And most of the time she's right, but sometimes I have to disagree with her just to be different, just to at a spite to be like, no, I'm doing it this way, even though it's wrong.
Well, I mean, it's interesting. I don't think very many people can fully relate to the sort of the transition, taking over that position, but you are still writing a column with Niagara This Week, right? I mean, that's still a thing.
Correct. Yeah, the column is, for whatever reason, God knows why, it's pretty popular with readers of Niagara This Week. So when I put in my resignation, they did ask if I would continue to write the column for them. So I said yes, and I'm glad to be able to still do that and bring a little bit of entertainment to people. Like this week, I got a lot of positive messages from people who said they enjoyed this week's silly little rant I had about how trees are bad for the environment. So it's good I can still make people laugh.
I read most of your columns, but I missed that one. I got to be honest.
It's out there. It's one of my more kind of interesting ones where I'm really trying to get under the skin of the enviro geeks out there who already don't like me.
I'm going to let you in on a secret, man. I don't think they like very many people, but
That's true.
I do want to ask you about opening day because I know that's coming up. So I want to talk with you about that. But first, and this is going to be no surprise to you, the big story this week, having our local MPP Wayne Gates, filing a complaint. I understand under the Competition Act against Woodbine Race Track. I did talk about it a little bit earlier on the show, but I wanted to get a more official statement from somebody who maybe can explain it in simpler terms in a way that I and maybe other people listening will understand sort of what happened and what are some of the real world consequences, let's say, for the Fort Erie Race Track of having Wayne Gates file that complaint.
Of course, yeah. So going back to Wayne Gates for a moment, he is a really strong supporter of the racetrack, always a great ally for us. I don't think the guy's missed an opening day or a Prince of Wales in a couple decades. So we were glad to have him kind of take up our cause and bring it to Queen's Park to get us some more attention after we filed, or I should say our board of directors filed a grievance with the Canadian Trade Commission. The gist of it comes down to two big issues. One is the horse shipping policy, which Woodbine made official yesterday on Friday, announced the return of what they call the Race and Stay program. Essentially, it means if you are a trainer, you own horses and run at Woodbine, if you send that horse down to Fort Erie to race here, you will lose your stall. You will return to Woodbine to find that you have been locked out of your stall.
Wow.
And Woodbine has their reasons for doing that. They say it's about protecting horse supply and some other things. As far as we're concerned, the reason they're doing it is to really kind of tighten their grip on the supply of horses that is in Ontario. We're all trying to get our hands on the same number of horses. We used to get along, and horses used to ship freely back and forth between the two tracks. It was, mutually beneficial for both of us to do that. But for whatever reason, Woodbine has said, no, we would like all of these horses to simply stay here.
But does that, sorry to interrupt, but I mean, does that affect other racetracks? I mean, it can't be just Fort Erie that's impacted by that policy then, right?
It is just Fort Erie. We're the only thoroughbred racing track outside of Woodbine. There's other racetracks that race different types of horses, quarter horses, that kind of thing. Fort Erie and Woodbine are the only thoroughbred racetracks. So they're kind of more elite level of horses.
So that policy then I mean, that policy they might as well have just put on there, don't take your horse to Fort Erie. Really, that's
it is a policy aimed at exactly one place.
Wow. Okay, good. So now this is making more sense to me. All right, so the real consequences of this then is that you must have horses and racers that are reluctant to come to Fort Erie at all.
Of course. So there's trainers who would love to come, put their horse in a race here, would love to come earn a little bit of extra cash running in Fort Erie, who now have to very much think twice about that because they don't want to find themselves locked out of their stalls at Woodbine. So it's putting owners and trainers in a very difficult position. I think they're almost like they're stuck, their parents are fighting in the other room, and it's like there's a little kid stuck kind of awkwardly listening to mom and dad fight. That's
okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like it's bad for the trainers, bad for the owners, bad for the racetrack. I mean, it sounds like, and this must be the basis of the complaint, is that the only party that really benefits here then is Woodbine Racetrack, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's basically the argument we took to the Canadian Trade Commission, is that because Woodbine is what's known in boring legal terms as the dominant market force. They are the biggest entity in Ontario horse racing. They're abusing their marketplace to kind of exert undue pressure on us and to put us in a difficult, tight spot in terms of our horse racing operations.
And there was a second part to the complaint as well, something about and I don't know anything about horse racing, so there's something about the Triple Crown Royal Jewel something or other races, I don't know, whatever. Wasn't there something about scheduling that? What's that part all about?
Yeah, so the long and short of that one is that during COVID, the Triple Crown schedule kind of got all messed up. And what happened is that the first race had to be run very late in August, the first race being the King's Plate, which is followed up by the Prince of Wales Stakes, our signature race.
Yes.
A very big day for Fort Erie. That's the second jewel of the Canadian Triple Crown. So that, because horses need time to relax and recuperate between races, there needs to be a certain number of weeks between each of the races of the Triple Crown. So when Woodbine raced theirs in August, that pushed ours out to September. We had assumed this was a temporary COVID thing. Turns out Woodbine thought differently, and they said, no, actually, we like having our race in August. So that has put us in a position where we're forced to continue to run the Prince of Wales Stakes in late September. Now, late September, as you know, as a local, is not the same as August or July.
Right.
The American cottagers have gone home. The summer tourism season is over. The weather's not as nice. People aren't really as enthusiastic about being outside at 6 or 7 o'clock at night watching a horse race in late September as they are in June, July, and August, when it's beautiful and you've got time off and kids are off school. So forcing us to keep the Prince of Wales Stakes in September is really hampering that event. It's not able to realize its full potential to what it once was. And we were really hoping that it would move back. Woodbine said no. We asked for a compromise. We said, okay, just kick yours back 2 weeks. That would allow us to land the Prince of Wales Stakes on Labor Day weekend. Not perfect, but at least it's a long weekend. At least it's sort of still summer. We could do all right. They said no, even to that little 2 week movement that we asked, which really was nothing to them, but meant the world to us, being able to move back to Labor Day weekend. The request was ignored. So we're really hoping to work with them to get that fixed and get the Triple Crown back to where it was, which is, in the summertime.
So if I'm understanding correctly, then our local MPP files a complaint with the Canadian Trade Commission.
Our board of directors filed the complaint.
Your board of directors filed the complaint. Okay. And so Mr. Gates then did not file a complaint, so to speak, but he just brought attention to the issue at Queen's Park. Is that correct?
Yeah. So he took our complaint. He brought it to Queen's Park to kind of spread the word there to the rest of the MPPs who were kind of, generally unaware of what's going on, especially outside of that kind of Toronto bubble. They tend to only know what's going on in their own backyard over there.
Sure.
And because of that, I think there's a lot of MPPs who view Woodbine as sort of the good guys in this. Not that we're trying to paint them as the bad guys and us as the good guys. It's more sort of just a David and Goliath thing, right? They have all the power. They have all the money. And that's one of the reasons we actually had to go through the Canadian Trade Commission. There's a lot of people who've said over the years, well, why don't you take this to the courts to try and ratify this? The short answer there is that Woodbine would bury us with lawyers. They have lawyers on retainer. They have more lawyers than we know what to do with. So we knew we couldn't win that fight. We will never win a legal fight in the court against Woodbine. That's just a fact. But by going through the Canadian Trade Commission, which is a very different legal avenue, it limits their ability to just sort of bury us with lawyers. And it's a more level playing ground. And Wayne Gates essentially said, hey, this is a story that deserves a little bit of attention. And we're very appreciative that he brought that to Queen's Park to kind of bring it to a wider audience. There's not a lot of people are looking up commission filings to the Canadian Trade Commission grievances, right? So it's a very niche thing. So Wayne did us a favor by saying, hey, this, I can get this out a little further reach than just your basic Canadian Trade Commission filing.
Got it. So what's the process now, though? I mean, I assume these race dates are already set. You know, our local sort of signature event has been pushed into September. What's kind of the best case scenario, and what's the timeline here for actually finding a potential resolution to this complaint?
So everything we're doing here is aimed at next year. Like you said, race dates are set. The AGCO has really, really strict procedures in place for race dates. So everything for this season is set in stone. What we're hoping is that something comes through before the end of the season saying, hey, let's work together. And then the 2024 season can look a little more normal. We could have the normal Triple Crown in the summer, and we can have a shipping policy that allows horses to, once again, move freely between the two tracks as they did for decades before.
Right. Well, let's hopefully that's the case. Something a little more imminent, though. We're coming up on really about a week or so until opening day at the racetrack. So what's in store? Opening day is, if I have my dates correct, the 21st, 23rd.
May 23rd, mark it on your calendars. That's opening day. We got a great band after the races, Figure 4, great little party band. Like we always do, we have the T-shirt giveaway. I worked hard designing a great new T-shirt this year for everybody for the giveaway.
Nice.
Including, every year we get asked by people, do you have kid sizes? T-shirts, do you have kid sizes? And we always have to say no, we don't. Sorry. This year we figured, let's go for it. We actually do have these great looking kids T-shirts with a kind of 8-bit retro video game inspired logo in the middle. So your youngster can be fitted out and looking fresh when they head off to daycare or kindergarten this year in their finest Fort Erie Race Track T-shirt.
So I don't want to jinx you by any means, and I don't want to ask you to speculate, but the last couple of years were marred by closures and travel restrictions and all the rest of it. Is 2023 the year where things are really and truly sort of back to normal attendance-wise at the racetrack? Is that what you're projecting for opening night, as like a typical opening night that we might have seen, say, in like 2018, 2019?
Yeah, I think so. COVID's in the rearview mirror. You don't have to show your, vaccine papers on the way in like you did. You don't have to pre-register. We're kind of in the pre-COVID days where just show up, the doors are open, come on in, have a good time, place a wager, listen to some good tunes, and have a good time, kind of just relax on a fun Tuesday evening at the racetrack.
It really is a wild event. And I can't wait to be there. But it was one of those things that my wife and I moving to Fort Erie 9 years ago. We didn't realize what a big deal Tuesday night races were. And it was like, you go there and you bump into people that you didn't even know that it's like, it really is like the whole town comes out for this kind of thing. So I can't wait. Is there anything else about this racing season that you want to share with listeners just before we wrap up?
We got a lot of great stuff this season. Our really popular dog races are back. We got the Wiener dog races on July 16th and the Basset Hound races on August 13th. Those are a lot of fun. The kids get a laugh out of it. It's just for fun. The dogs take off. Some of them go the wrong way. Some of them don't know what they're doing. It's a fun day. We got some great concerts. We just announced our full band lineup yesterday, where we revealed that we're closing out our concert series with the Caverners, who are just absolutely, one of the best Beatles covers band you'll ever see, right? Costumes, the makeup, the wig, they go the whole 9 yards, man. They're awesome. We had them at the track a few years ago, and the place was just packed to the rafters. We had 5,000-6,000 people there just to watch the Caverners play, and that was for an opening night. And so this year we figured to go the other way. We'll bring them back to close out the summer. So you can catch the Caverners on, I want to say, August 29th.
August 20. Is that the final answer?
Final answer, August 29th, last concert of the summer, last hurrah for summer in Fort Erie. The Caverners will be closing us out that night.
That's awesome. Okay, well, I can't wait, and certainly I will be there for opening night. Thanks so much for taking my call, man. I appreciate it, and thank you for helping to clear things up for us today.
Fort Erie Real Estate with Brent Jones, your friendly local realtor with RE/MAX Niagara Realty.
Well, I have a couple of noteworthy things to share with you happening in the world of Fort Erie real estate. First and foremost, the short-term rental moratorium was lifted on May the 8th. If you're wondering what a moratorium is, it is a short-term ban on something. The town was not giving out short-term rental licenses for a period of time. Well, that was lifted on May the 8th, meaning effective 8:30 a.m. on May the 8th, the town began accepting new applications for short-term rental licenses. Now, here's the thing. The town issues a maximum of 250 short-term rental licenses each year, and there were only 55 remaining as of May the 8th. Which means by the time you're listening to this episode, if you really wanted one, you might already be too late. But you are welcome to try submitting an application to the town. It's online only. Visit forterie.ca and complete the short-term rental application form. And good luck to you. The other thing I wanted to discuss is the housing prices are up across Niagara about 13% since the start of 2023. Now, this is after prices fell roughly 27% last year between February and December. Prices right now are essentially in the same neighborhood of where they were last June. Now, prices declined last year largely due to rising interest rates. There was sort of a wait and see effect going on. A lot of buyers thinking, well, as interest rates rise, prices come down, let's see where this market bottoms out. Well, the answer is that the market bottomed out, if you can call it that, in December. Come January, the Bank of Canada announced that they would be holding interest rates steady, which restored consumer confidence. So that's one reason we see prices on the rise again, is that buyers are coming back to the table. Now, unfortunately, at the same time, brand new listings are not keeping pace. New listings in the month of April were at a historic low, the lowest in recent years that I saw, with the exception of 2020, the start of the pandemic. So we again have the situation with increased demand and decreased supply, which is causing prices to rise again. Fort Erie, for the time being, remains the second most affordable market to buy a detached resale home in the region, second only to Port Colborne, in first place for most affordable. Although, if I'm being very honest, there's not a huge difference in prices between Fort Erie and Port Colborne. Nonetheless, it takes approximately 50 days on average to sell a home in Fort Erie right now, the longest, or I should say the slowest, of any part of the region. So if you are thinking of getting your home on the market this spring, I'd recommend that you don't delay. Call me for a free opinion of value, 905-626-8826. Again, it's 905-626-8826.
Fort Erie Questions and Answers, based on the Facebook group by the same name.
Welcome to Fort Erie Questions and Answers. This is the segment in the show where I go through the Facebook group by the same name and pick out any questions and answers that I thought were interesting or amusing. Like in the case of this first one, somebody named Polly asks, anybody know where I can get fresh cut flowers in the Fort Erie area? Now, normally that question would seem pretty innocuous, but just based on the timing, it looks to me like this person might have totally forgot that Sunday was Mother's Day. And rather than get in trouble, they thought they'd jump on Facebook to try to find a solution. What surprised me, though, about this one is that the overwhelming number of people who responded in the comments suggested Sobeys. And yeah, for sure, you can get fresh cut flowers at Sobeys. I'm not arguing that point, but it surprises me that more people didn't mention some of our local florists who are also doing a great job. One person did mention Gift Baskets Niagara, which is the new florist on Garrison Road. I've been in there. The staff are lovely. It's a great flower shop. I highly recommend it. The place where I normally purchase flowers, where I send most of my floral business, let's call it, is Crescent Gardens Florist, which moved from Garrison Road to Ridge Road and Ridgeway. Still a great business. Not one person mentioned it in the comments. So let me be the person to sort of, I don't know, what would you call that? Throw my suggestion into the hat, throw my hat into the ring, however the saying goes. Crescent Gardens Florist, I highly recommend checking them out. Another question here, Aubrey asks, does anyone know if there is a local decent basketball court in Fort Erie? What does that mean, a local decent basketball court? I feel like there were shots fired. Do we have a bunch of rundown basketball courts? Is that all you've been able to find so far? I'm not totally sure what you mean by that question. But regardless, the overwhelming response here was the basketball court at Crystal Ridge Arena. I've been there. I can verify that it is a decent basketball court. Some might even say better than decent. Some might even say it's a fairly nice basketball court. One person mentioned in the comments that there's a basketball court at Ferndale Park, but they were, and by the way, Ferndale Park I know has been renamed. It's called Birdie something or other now. I don't know, but everybody still calls it Ferndale Park. There was only one person who mentioned it in the comments, so I decided to take a drive by. And yes, Ferndale Park does have a basketball court. Whether or not Aubrey will find it decent, I suppose that's an entirely different matter. And the last question I found in here that I thought was interesting was Zane asks, is there and emphasizes in brackets here, is there a lady Zumba instructor in Fort Erie? I have a question. Let me just say, first and foremost, Darlene Raitt came up a bunch of times in the comments, which she should have. She's sort of Fort Erie's resident Zumba instructor, let's say. But I just thought it was interesting that this person was asking about a lady Zumba instructor specifically. I can't say I've ever met a gentleman Zumba instructor, but assuming there are gentlemen Zumba instructors out there, I hope they would be able to answer your questions as well. Anyway, I'm going to keep an eye on this Facebook group and keep reporting any interesting questions and answers that I find.
Community events coming up in Fort Erie.
Okay, with the long weekend coming up, there are just a handful of events I wanted to mention. If you want to check out some live music this weekend, you'll have quite a few different options. This first event, I actually don't even know if I can call it live music because it's karaoke. I like going to karaoke personally, but for the same reasons that most people like watching American Idol. It's just kind of funny to watch people bomb. But you can check out Friday Night Karaoke. That's on May 19th at the Ridgeway Legion. Enjoy karaoke with Sabrina and friends. As far as bands performing this weekend, on Saturday, May the 20th, you can catch Barrel Down performing at Brimstone Brewing Company. This, I believe, is going to be a patio event, so I guess dress appropriately depending what the weather is doing. Also performing on Saturday at the Fort Erie Legion is the band Best Behavior. There was no membership required and no cover charge. Then on Sunday, May 21st, I believe this is another event at the Ridgeway Legion. West Wind will be performing. This, however, is a ticketed event. You need to get a ticket. It is $20. It includes dinner, and West Wind starts performing at 4 o'clock. You can contact Barbara Hopkins at 905-380-6094 for ticket information. I did want to mention Monday, May 22nd, that is technically Victoria Day, and according to the town of Fort Erie's website, the Fort Erie Railway Museum is open daily from Victoria Day through to Labor Day. Probably a bit like the above-ground pool in your backyard that never gets used. But if you are a fan of the Fort Erie Railway Museum, I don't want to say for certain, but it sounds like it may be opening this weekend as well. Maybe just, gently knock on the door before going inside.
The FortEriePodcast.com.
Well, hey, I think that just about concludes things for today. Thanks for listening to this episode number 52. This is the first episode after relaunching the Fort Erie podcast after a 14-month hiatus. That's always tricky because you don't have a place to pick up, kind of where you left off. It's almost like reintroducing this show to audiences, both old and new. But a couple quick reminders. Don't forget to call the Byrd Box. That could be any subject, anything on your mind. 24 hours a day you can call. It can be good. It can be bad. You can ask questions. I'm happy to take your questions on any topic. Totally up to you. And it's anonymous, by the way. I know it's a small town. There's always people worried, like, if I give out my name, everybody's... Look, you don't even have to say who you are. You can just call and leave a message. The number's 289-599-BYRD, Bird. 289-599-BIRD. Squawk about anything you want, and the whole town can hear it right here on the Fort Erie podcast. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to this show wherever it is you listen to podcasts, because you can find it everywhere. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube. Everywhere you look, you'll find the Fort Erie podcast. And there's a reason it's important that you subscribe. It's not just me saying, hey, subscribe because I want to inflate my download numbers. That's not the case at all. The reason being is that I used to do the first 51 episodes of the Fort Erie podcast were all done on a schedule. It was clockwork. Every Tuesday morning, a new episode would drop. I'm not sticking to that schedule anymore. The honest to God truth of it is that I ended up taking this hiatus over the past 14 months because, my daughter's 1 now. I mean, she was born April 2022. We're into May of 2023 now. Between dad life, between real estate, between everything else that's going on in life, I find the quality of the show suffers when I put artificial constraints on, hey, there has to be a new episode every Tuesday. I'm going to aim to try to have a new episode every week, but I'm not going to promise a new episode every week. And I'm certainly not going to promise it's going to happen on the same day every week. So my recommendation is that you subscribe through one of the popular podcast apps, podcast platforms. And that way, when a brand new episode does come out, you'll be notified about it. That's my suggestion. All right, folks. Thanks for listening. We'll talk again soon.
You've been listening to the Fort Erie Podcast with your host, Brent Jones. Never miss an episode. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, or visit theforteriepodcast.com.